Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another session on Crafty Illustrations, hosted by me, Leon, your tutor here at Media Savvy. Hope you're all well. Give us a little wave and a hello on our live chat there, um, and let's get started. Okay, so this is the fourth session on our little series, a little creative series called Crafty Illustrations, and it comes under the banner of Crafty Creatives. And under Crafty Creatives, really, we were looking at exploring new ways we can kind of channel our creative side and harness harness com- or bring computer and digital imagery um, in to our kind of our our creative kind of workflow, if you like. So a lot of people like to sketch and like to do things by hand, and we're looking at how we can embrace technology in order to push our creative side a little bit further. So Crafty Illustrations is part of a 5-week course where we look at creating vector-based imagery using two different computer programs. Okay, we're using one called Illustrator, which is a paid program, which is the industry standard. It's absolutely fantastic bit of kit. But then we're using a freeware version, freeware bit of software called Inkscape, which is free to download, and it carries a lot of the same or similar tools. So what you can create in one program, you should be able to create in the other quite easily. Okay, so that's what we're looking at doing in Crafty Illustrations. Um, as always, we've got enrollment forms to fill in. So if you haven't already completed an enrollment form for this course, Crafty Illustrations, please fill this form in. We're in the process of making this a little bit more seamless and creating a form. So the next few weeks we'll have an online form to fill in. But at the minute, if you could just click onto the link, it'll take you to our enrollment form here, and all you guys need to fill in is sections B and C. So it's just your personal details there and where you are in terms of your learning at the beginning of this course. Okay, and this is just so we can log our learners. Okay, so that's really important for us. And then at the end of the session, if you wouldn't mind completing our survey just to give us a bit of feedback, that'd be fantastic as well. Once you've filled in the form, just download the form, fill it in, and email it to us. If you are struggling to do that, please just send us an email with your details in the email, with the details that is found in the enrollment form. Just whack your details into an email, and then we'll sort out the rest for you. Okay. So that's boring stuff out of the way. Let's have a quick look at where we are on the course. Okay, so we had a little taster session a few weeks ago, and that looked into what vector images are and what the difference is between vector-based images and bitmap images. And then we've proceeded to build up our knowledge using vector-based programs, like I said, Illustrator and Inkscape. And we're building on our knowledge each week by creating some artwork that will eventually form an artwork for a 70-year-old birthday celebration, if you like. So it's a bit of artwork where we can create a birthday card with the artwork, an invitation, and a birthday banner. Okay, and that's what we'll be putting together towards next session, and I'll show you how we can move towards that in today's session also. Okay. Last week we looked at the gradient mesh tool, which is quite an advanced tool in Illustrator, and these are the locations of the files that we've been working on. So if you want to click on these, it'll take you to our shared folder where you can download those files and have a look at those and play around with them to your heart's content. And I'll update that again for the artwork that we'll be generating this week. Okay, so this is what we did last week. As mentioned last week as well, it's always quite daunting when you jump onto a program like Illustrator or any program that you're not really familiar with. There's all these buttons and panels and windows that jump out to you, and half of them you'll never ever use. Some of them you will. Sometimes some of them you might use once or twice. Okay, so don't get too hung up on trying to learn absolutely everything in in a program, because you'll only use what you want to use. Basically, it's pointless learning something that you're never ever going to use. You might as well put that energy into learning something that you're gonna it's going to improve your interest in the way you work. I made that fatal mistake years ago when I tried to learn a program called Flash. I've got this big, huge this Bible on how to learn Flash, and I tried to go through page by page, and by about 20 pages I got bored and never touched it again. So basically, if you've got an interest in creating artwork for let's have a look, let's artwork for printed artwork for t-shirts or for wall art or something like that, then look at the tutorials and the resources online that will help you do that. As you build up your knowledge as well, you'll also learn the key terms and the key tools that you can then put into your likes of your not Illustrator, sorry, your YouTube and Google and searches and what have you. Just so when you get stuck, you can type in what is the gradient mesh tool, or how to add a new color to the gradient mesh tool, and things like that. But I've always found if you just put the question in the way you would want to be asked the question to somebody, if you just type that into Google, let's say you're looking for some help on how to use a gradient mesh tool in this example, all I would do is write Illustrator how to ... use a gradient mesh tool, and it'll bring up loads and loads of resources for you. Okay, so just really focus on your attention on what you really want to learn, and hopefully that'll keep your juices flowing. So as mentioned last week, we played around with this really advanced tool, the gradient mesh tool, and we used it in Illustrator, and we used Inkscape's version of the gradient mesh tool, where we hit a few little snags. So what I'm going to do at the beginning of this session is I'm going to start in Inkscape, because in the last few sessions I've started in Illustrator, and I felt that we've rushed a little bit in Inkscape at the end. So we're going to start in Inkscape this time, and we're going to try and replicate this Pear using the gradient mesh tool in Inkscape. And hopefully we're going to learn a few things along the way. Inkscape isn't a program that I use all the time. I usually use Illustrator, and this has been a really good learning experience for me to figure out how to learn Inkscape as well. So again, we might hit a few more snags, but hopefully we'll be able to figure our way around it. Okay, so these are just a few little notes that I picked up last week that I would just like to point out to you, because when we finished the session last week, I realised that there is some instructions at the bottom of the panel in Inkscape here that give you some kind of suggestions or instructions on how to use the tool, so that can probably point you in the right direction. But we got stuck here, didn't we? We got stuck here trying to add this lovely, this gradient to try and replicate this color. So what I'm going to do first of all is I know I said of starting Inkscape, but I just want to show you what we're trying to achieve in Illustrator first. Okay, I'm not going to do it, I'm just going to show you. Okay, so this is Illustrator. We've got a few panels here which I'll close. Try not to confuse you guys here. And we brought in an image of this Pear. We created this mesh. We traced around it to create that the overall shape. And then we created a mesh around that shape to add color, and then we added some different effects to create this. And as you can see, I'm playing around with patterns. I was going to show you some pattern work this week, and if we've got time, I'll show you how to do something like this as well, and equally in Inkscape. But let's move into Inkscape now. We'll try and replicate this. The reason why I want to show you this gradient mesh tool really is because we want to try and apply this to the artwork that we're creating for our 70th birthday artwork. Okay, so if I can find the artwork, well, we'll get back to that. Okay, so this is something I was playing around with before, and I'll show you now in Inkscape. This is we are in Inkscape now. We've got the image in. We done all this last week. I'm just going to close this down for a minute and try and resize my panel. Okay, and this is where I was experimenting with this gradient mesh tool here, and I'm going to start from scratch again with the basic shape, and then I'm going to talk you through what I've learned over the last week on how to use that tool. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of a few of these, clean my artboard up a little bit, get rid of that, and I'm going to put these to one side as references because this is what I've created recently, so I'm going to keep them there. I'm not going to bother, well actually I will. I'm going to draw around this shape again using some tools just to refresh our knowledge. A few weeks ago we touched on this Bezier tool here, and what it does is basically allows you to draw straight lines and curves. So if you click on the tool, it looks like this one here. And as you can see at the bottom, if you hover over this, at the bottom of the panel here, click and drag to start the path. With shift to append to select the path, control click to create single dots, straight lines and whatnot. So that sounds a bit it doesn't make a lot of sense, but as you work through it, as you mess about with it, you'll figure out what it's trying to get at. So if we click first, one click with our left mouse button, we're going to go over the curve, and we're going to click there, holding down our left mouse button and pulling out that curve, and then it kind of predicts the shape of where that curve is going to go next. If you move your mouse, it gives you another little curve. And then we want to zoom in, by the way, press Control and use your wheel to zoom in. I'm going to try and create this curve here, so I'm going to click there, I'm going to pull that in, pull that out. And what I mean by that is I'm going to click, hold down and pull my mouse out until I get that little curve there. Control and use my wheel to zoom out a little bit, and then I'm going to follow this curve of the pear until I get roughly what I want. We've got basically what we're aiming to do is we're aiming to get a rough interpretation of this pear, and then we're going to go back into it and tweak it in a minute. Okay, so don't get hung up on its absolute shape. For now, we're just going to go around, click, hold and pull out your curve here. As you can see, I'm just going to have to make it up round here because we don't know what it looks like. And then when we go back to this point here, we've got something funky going on there. I'm going to show you how to sort that out in a minute. Okay, so don't get too hung up on getting it perfect, and don't get too hung up on why you're going to end up with funky things going on like this, because to be fair, what I've found over the times using computers is that if you do get hung up over the whys, sometimes you lose a lot of time trying to figure it out, where it could be it is sometimes easy to just sort the problem out instead of figuring out why it's happening. So that, for example, there we'll get to that, and we'll try and adjust it in a minute. Okay, so what I'm going to click on now is this edit paths by nodes. So when it says nodes, it means these little points around the shape, all those places that you've clicked on around that shape, you're putting down a thing called a node, okay? And that allows you to control the curve of that shape. And as you can see, if we zoom in a little bit more, attached to those nodes are two handles here, okay? And one handle's got a little circle on, another handle's got another circle on. If you click on it, you can, and hold down and move, you can manipulate that curve, okay? Here, we'll do the same, but if you look, we don't have any handles at the minute. And if you come up to here, you've got a load of other tools, or loads of little controls that we can do with that node. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you, I don't know what 80% of these do. So we're just going to figure it out now. You can kind of guess by the shape and the kind of icon here what they do. So this one, I'm guessing that if you click on that, click on your node and click on that, it's going to allow you to have some kind of controls like you have here, as you can see from the icon. So I'm going to guess that by clicking on it, and there you go. There's your two handles there. Okay, and if it doesn't work, just don't worry about it. Just your favorite and best friend in any computer program, I find, is Control and Z. Now my left hand is always hovering over Control and Z, because what Control and Z is it's a shortcut to undo. So if you ever make a mistake, Control and Z. Okay, so I'm going to just work my way around this pair. I know I'm repeating what we did a few weeks ago, but it's just to kind of cement your knowledge, because this tool and technique is quite an advanced tool. Going around there, quite happy with that. Right here, we've got one curve, and we've got a couple of little curves here. Now, really, I wouldn't be messing about with this, but just for illustration, and well, not for illustration purposes, but for tutorial purposes, I'm going to show you how to kind of mimic this a little bit closer. So if we double click on that line, it introduced a new node. I'm going to double click one there and introduce another node, and then we can just mess about with these handles and create those shapes we want. Okay, now that one there, I would like to mess about with a little bit more and maybe give it a bit more of a curve there. Zoom out a bit, that's a bit extreme, so I'm going to try and adjust that if I can. Now, if you pay attention to that point there, when I move this point, watch what happens. That point moves as well. Okay, so we can get roughly where we need to be, but sometimes you want to just move the one point and keep the other one where it is. Okay, so we can use this point here to just bear with me 1 minute. Oh no, we can't. Telling absolute lies here. I think that's me getting confused with Illustrator. But anyway, you can usually just move that one by itself independently. I'm not too sure how we do it in Inkscape, but I'm not going to get too hung up about that for now. So I'm just going to go back a bit. We had this issue here, didn't we? This shape here. Okay, so what we're going to try and do is reduce this curve and sort that a little bit out. So what I'll do is I'll move that in a little bit to create that bottom curve, and then this here I'm going to drag in towards the pair, and as you can see I've reduced that distance there, and that's ironed out that little corner there, that little issue. And I'll do the same with this one, just to reduce that curve, and then we're gonna have our shape to start using that gradient tool. And there we go. Okay, we've got that little bit there, but I'm not going to be too worried about it. Everything else looks all right. So there we go. That's the shape that we're going to play around with. Okay. So what I always do, I'm a big fan of kind of duplicating my work, especially when I get to points in my workflow where I need something as a little bit of a backup, you know. So a cool little trick I learned the other day was Control and D, which allows you to duplicate that shape. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to just move that to one side, okay? So the way I usually work is I'll make me little copies or me duplicates, and I'll put them to one side. If I've made an absolute mess of this, I've always got this to refer to. And I can make another copy from that and always keep that as a base. When I get to the end of me design process, I'm happy with it, and maybe I've sent off the drafts for people to have a look at and made the changes that I need. Then I'll create a final copy of that document, and that's where I'll go and delete all the bits and pieces, all the backups that I don't need. I'll get rid of those, just have the artwork in there and create a final copy of that. Okay, so there'll probably be depending on how complex the project is, there'll be many copies of the program of the artwork that you're generating. Right, so as you can see, we've got an outline there, and to control that, I'll change the color of it. You can do it down here. So we've got fill and we've got stroke. So if we click on the image or click on the shape that we just created, there's a stroke there. If we click on the black, we should be able to change the color, which we can. And you can just mess about with these sliders here. R for red, G for green, B for blue. And you can just play around, and then you can just move around up here as well. This one's quite a good one to give you a good indication of what the color is going to be at the top, and then you can H is a hue, S is a saturation, so how strong that color is, and HSL, I think L is lightness. So you can play around with the color, but we don't want a stroke. So what we're going to do is we're going to press that X, hopefully that removes the stroke, and we're going to put the fill. So that's to remove the stroke, and that is the fill color. Okay, and what we're going to do is we are going to click this button, which is the mesh tool. So we've selected our image, or select our object, sorry. We're going to click the mesh tool like we did last week, and up at the top here you've got some different options. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to illustrate to you something very quickly aside from this. So what the mesh tool does is it does this. Okay, it just put this into an outline for you. There we go. So what the mesh tool does, it will carve your image up into different sections. So if I click on this, this is just an example, this is just an illustration of what I'm trying to get at here. So do another one. Just bear with me 1 minute. So if we focus on this square for a minute and we click on that, at the top we've got some controls here. Now again, don't know what all of them are because I'm quite new to Inkscape, but what I do know is that these are quite important. So you've got rows and columns. So with your shape, so if I go and drag my shape over here now, this is again, it's just illustration purposes. You don't need to do this to create the gradient. I'm just trying to illustrate as best I can what I'm talking about. What it does is it creates one row and one column, which will be one box, and it'll put points around that shape, and each of those points, again, for illustration purposes, just quickly draw some points here just to show you. So it'll put some point around your image, and each of these points you click on, it's a point or a node, you click on that and then you're going to assign a color to each point. So on this area of the image, if I change that to green, again guys, this is illustration purposes, it's just for me to try and explain what the gradient mesh tool does in Inkscape. This is not what you need to do to create the mesh. Okay, I'm going to show you that in a minute. So let's say I change that color. I'm going to change that color to yellow. Okay, so this area around that shape is then going to give a nice yellow color here. If I change that color there to purple, this area around that shape is going to be purple, and then in between it's just going to kind of, it's going to be a gradient. It's going to go from one to another. Okay, if I go to my gradient mesh tool again and I alter that to 2 rows and 2 columns, like tables we have in Word, Microsoft Word, or Google Sheets even, or Google Documents. We've got 2 rows, 1, 2, 2 columns, 1, 2. So it then gives you more areas of levels of control here. You see what I mean? Okay, so you can assign colors for each one of these points. Now this looks quite attractive. Well, it looked quite attractive for me, this scenario, when I was learning the gradient mesh tool a few weeks ago, because it made me think, right, well, the more I carve this image up, the better, because I've got more control over the colors that I've got. And I was proven wrong in my last session, because I carved the image up to, I don't know how many rows and columns. This was in Illustrator, and the level of control was so much that the colors didn't merge and mesh together properly, because that means the area that impacts is smaller. Okay, and then in reality, really, you have only a few colors that kind of mesh together, not all of these points. So I found it easier to have less points, and to try and pick the main colors from say this shape here that we're going to try and use, the pear, and pick the main colors from that to create the pear shape. Okay, but this is just my experience, and I'm quite new to messing around with the gradient mesh tool here in Inkscape. So again, you'll find your own way if you play around with it yourself. Okay, so what have I done? Right, okay, I've deleted that by accident, so I'm going to make another copy. Oh. So take that. I'm now going to use gradient mesh tool to mimic this color here. Okay, so I've got my shape there. These things here are just backups, so I'm moving them out of the way. Zoom in there, click on my shape first, click on the meshes, create and edit meshes, and then I'm going to give myself, I'm going to go for 1 row and 1 column, so that square basically, like I showed you in that example. In fact, what I will do, I'm going to copy this, copy all that, go back a little bit. I'm going to keep those there because this file is going to be used for you guys at a later date, isn't it? So I'll keep that there for you. I'll put a little box around and tart that up and put some notes in there, and you can use that as a reference if that's going to help you. Okay, right, so let's go back to this, let's go back to that. That's got the gradient to the gradient applied to it now, but it's all it is, it's still a flat color, but we've instructed Inkscape to give that a gradient. Okay, if we go to our stroke and fill, if we click this gradient mesh button here, it's going to create a gradient there, okay? And it just picks a gradient at random, and we're going to mess about with that and change that now, okay? So each of these points, remember, just move that over. Oh, just moving that over there because I'm missing that. Remember, when we've got one column and one row, it's just a square, and we've got 4 points of control. So if you go over here, what we do have here is we've got our 4 points of control: 1, 2, 3, 4. Now don't get confused with these points that form the shape of the pear, okay? These points are the pear itself, okay? We're not playing around with these, we're just playing around with these points around the pear here, okay? So the 4 points. Now if we had 2 rows and 2 columns, then we would have 1 point there, we'd have another point in the middle, we'd have another point there, and one there, and there, one there, just like we have here, okay? But we only have 4 to worry about. Now we're going to change the color. So if you could guess what color that would be, you can see it's purple, and if you can see here, it looks like it's a white, okay? But that's where the color is originating from. So if I click on this shape, click on that node, and move that node further in, you can see that the white gets stronger and stronger and stronger, okay? You can also see another problem here, in that when we move the node in, the curves need to be adjusted to fit the shape of the pear, okay? So all we need to do, it's very simple, it's exactly the same way we use our Bezier pen tool to create curves. But when we pull that pen in, that's the boundary here of where the color is. So we're going to pull that back out, or maybe pull it to about there, and then we're going to zoom in a touch. Remember, control and the wheel, and we'll pull that in a touch. Click on that one, pull that in, click on that one, pull that one in. If you click off it by accident, like I did there, just you click on using this button here, edit paths by nodes. Click on the mesh again, and that will allow you to control it. Bring that in, click on that, bring that in there. Right, now as you can see, like your nodes around your shape, you have these handles. You can move these handles about to try and get that shape. Now you don't need to be precise here. You just need to get it roughly where it needs to be. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my nodes outside of the shape, purely because it's quite difficult to select the node and not pick up the line of the shape by accident. Okay, so that's all I'm doing that for. So I'm going to have a curve there. Click that, move that out a touch. Just, it doesn't need to follow it perfectly. There's a handle there. Let's see what we can do. There's a handle there for that one. Maybe pull that in a touch more. There's a handle for that one. There we go. The handle for that one is here. Pull that out. So it's roughly going to resemble that shape there. And as you can see, it's got a really cool effect already, even though it's purple. Now, I did find some other cool tricks that I'll try and incorporate into this shape in a minute, but let's edit the colors now. In fact, what I'm going to do, excuse me for 1 minute. I'm going to duplicate that. Remember, like I said, I always like to have a copy. So I'm going to have that copy down here. I'm going to make one more copy and have that there. And then what I'm going to do is copy this by pressing Ctrl and C, and then I'm going to go back. So in my computer memory now, I've pressed Ctrl and C, and that there is copied, and it's going to be in that position. And now I'm going to go back a few steps, because what I want to do, which I've realised as I've been speaking, is it's probably better. Edit, redo, edit, do, and then now I'm back. I'm at the point where I want to bring in that copy that I've copied. Control and V, and there's that copy there. Didn't really need to do that, to be fair, but which is something I do sometimes. Keep where I am at the present and then go back a little bit. Anyway, there's the shape. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change these colors, which moves us on to using the color picker tool, which we touched on last week. Color picker tool looks like this. Okay, and you can press D for your shortcut on your keyboard to get it. Okay, and what you need to do is click on that node and say click on the color here, and as you can see in the little square next to the color picker, it's sampling the color that it's gonna pick up, and that makes that node have that color. I'm going to do it the same to that one. Take that, give it that nice red color. I'm going to do it to that one, give it that color. That one, give it that color. Okay, and what I'm going to do is probably going to make it a touch darker, just to increase the contrast a bit. Okay, and there we have, it's not a great representation of it, but that's with the point still in that square. Okay, in this one, this is the reason why I copied this one. In this one, we moved those shapes, that square, we moved those points, the nodes, to fit around roughly around the shape of the pear. So we're going to see what this looks like now when we do that. So I'm going to so that now these nodes are a lot closer to this shape than that one there. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. Click our color picker tool, click on the node. We're going to move over and select the color from the actual picture of the pear. Do the same there. Click that. Click this. That. Okay, and as you can see, the contrast is a little bit better here because the color isn't transitioning from all the way over here. It's transitioning closer to the image, as you can see here. And if you want, you can manipulate these a bit more, bring them in a little bit more, and it should increase the contrast a bit more as well. So that's how we get the basic shape and the basic gradient in there. Now we're going to try and improve that because in comparison to our Illustrator one, which is this one, it's not as good in my opinion. So I'm going to show you a few more things with this gradient mesh tool, a few little tricks I picked up from last week. So again, I'm going to press Ctrl and D to duplicate that, and now I've got copy. I'm going to zoom in again. Now remember before when we created our gradient mesh, and it gives us the option up here. If we click on it, it gives us the option of how many rows, how many columns, blah blah blah. Okay, well I believe you can do that once you've created your shape, but I think I just have to try and remember myself. There is a shortcut to doing that. And I've got the tutorial on our little spread on our the tutorial for that is somewhere on here, I believe. I think that's that's the file, isn't it? The tutorial is there. That's a really good tutorial. Let's have a quick look at it now, actually. See if I can help me jog my memory. I'm having some problems with that. Move that out of the way. That's why.
The world's most indulgent drops of miracle face oil. £10.56. But add the fancy.
Hello and welcome to this new video on my channel, so that you could
speed up through this tutorial. You guys are going to have access to this file anyway, so I would really urge you to have a look at this because I found this so helpful last week. But this guy here is talking us through how to add extra curves and curvatures in here that add a bit more realism to the shape that we're trying to do. So I'm just quickly going back to this tutorial to have a quick look.
Access them in order to give it straight. Of copy of a be made later and aiming not on and columns the change, and the answer is you will transition cool keep it and become a point in that which will aid us to define this to the right. Looking along, very important how I did with to add for the do it. So do that sequentially for each of the grade to be must be perfectly already. Note that how much that long select the new the number the mesh things. So we are done. Now if we click on one diamond and select it, we can click on the eyedropper or call option stone, and for the diamond, this may be you cannot central scratch. I will select stroke paint, gradient mesh, and we have even to simulate to the and pull the copies, and we can make more duplicates and spreads. And I give it a tool that pull the handle.
Okay, I must have fast forwarded a little bit too quickly there. Let's see if I can figure it out myself. So how did he do it? Alt maybe? It wasn't Alt. And this is why it's really useful to have your copies there. I'm just doing a little bit of exploration myself. That's the wrong one. Use that. Alright, okay, it's as simple as that. All you need to do is double click on the line. Okay, so excuse me for that there, but sometimes we just need to try and figure these things out, and that's why it's really useful to have those duplicates there, so we can always experiment. So when you got your duplicates, always have your master duplicate there sitting there, and just make another copy off there and experiment with it, and then you can get rid of it like I've just done. So let's zoom back in again. I knew it was something simple. So what we do is we double click on, we should be able to just double click on the shape. Gradient mesh tool. There we go. Right, okay. So I missed one key thing out there. probably the most obvious thing, and you're probably screaming out at your computer trying to tell me, but you need to click the gradient mesh tool as well in order to do it. Okay, so there's a lesson there for you guys. So, and for me actually, a massive lesson. So there's the gradient tool there. We select the image that we want, and this is what we do here. We double click, and as you can see the little plus marks that come up here, we double click on that there. I'm just going to do a couple to show you. Select the image, gradient mesh, double click, and I'm going to do a couple across as well if we can. I'll do one here. Now this gives you a bit more control on how the colours fall on the shape. Okay, so if we move, so what I've done, I'll just go back a couple. I've clicked the gradient mesh tool. I've double clicked on the line of where the gradient mesh is lying, and you just double click, and it casts another curve within that shape. Okay, and it just splits that shape up into smaller sections where you can add a bit more color and what have you. We're not going to add any color for now, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use it to just kind of manipulate where the colors getting mixed. Okay, and that's all you can, that's how you can use that tool there. So I'm just going to give that a bit more of a curve, play around with it a bit there, move that down, maybe give it one more curve at the bottom there. And as you can see now, we've got this little curve thing going on here, which is what we need to try and achieve. Just keeping an eye on the time, guys. Just remember we usually have our break at about 2 o'clock. Usually a little 10-minute break. And there we go. So that's giving us a bit more control. Click on the node, and then you can move it about. Click on the little arrows, and that's a curve. It's controlling the curve, and it's just, I'm not going to do too much more of that, but if we can come off there, can you see there's a bit more shading? It's quite subtle, but there's a bit more shading here. But the great thing about it now is that if we go here, click on that node in the middle, if you move along a little bit, see we've got some highlights here. Now we can start adding those highlights. What I'll do is I'll add another point in there. I'm going to put that, have the highlight on this point here. There we go. I'm going to click on the white, which is at the bottom there, and there we go. Can you see how that's been added now? Now this is a massive highlight here in comparison to that, but let's see if we see what we can do if we click on that again and maybe change the highlight by selecting our color picker and selecting the actual color that belongs to that shape. Remember, click the point and then click the color. Let's go back. It's a little bit more subtle, that looks good. And then if we go to this point here, we're going to do the same there, hopefully. Click on that point there. Click on that shade. There we go. Now, this is a really good example now of introducing a few more curves. Once you've got the colors that you're after, can you see the curvature between this one and that one? That curvature that's coming over here now, where this is lacking a little bit of depth because it's still quite flat, but we've added those curves, those extra curves, to create that there. So that's taking shape quite nicely now. If we zoom in a bit, maybe we just need to tweak these ever so slightly if possible. Move that out a bit. Move that out a bit. And then you can just mess about with this as you like, really, but that's coming on quite nicely there. So that's the gradient mesh tool in Inkscape, and it always pays, as you can see, by creating duplicates until you. It's really good just for your comparison, actually, so you can see how you're improving, or if you're improving, or if you're not. One other thing, quick thing before we break, I'll take that take that stroke off. You don't want the stroke around there. And what I'll do is I'll add a shadow, and this is again live, so I'm gonna risk making a mistake here myself, but adding shadows to an image always helps make that image pop a little bit, give it something to sit on. Now this is one thing I wanted to show you last week, and it's something I wanted to show you at the beginning of this week in terms of the order of shapes in Inkscape, and this is a really good example of how to change the order. Now if you look at what we're trying to achieve, if you look at the real image, we want that shadow to sit underneath the pear. At the minute it's sitting on top of the pear. I only learned this myself a couple of days ago. In Illustrator you have a list of shapes that you can order and organize yourself. Now the way I've seen it working in Inkscape is by playing around with your layer order here, and if you hover over each section, it'll tell you what each one does. Now we want to lower the selection to the bottom, right to the bottom of that list. If you click on that, that's where that shape, that brings that to the back of the pear and creates a bit more of a shadow effect. Again, I'm not too sure. Again, I'm just going off piste here, so there might be a little mess up here and there, but all I've done is resize the shape. So if you click on the shape until the arrows go outwards and not round on the corners here, you can hold down on the corner and resize that shape. And then we have these effects or filters in Inkscape, and we've got lots and lots of different things, but blur is always quite a cool thing to add a bit more realism. So I haven't really experimented with these before, but I'm going to see what that clean edges does. Right, we're going to have a live preview because that's what we want to see what happens. We've got our strength here. If we move that up, hopefully that blurs the edge. That's what we want. That's brilliant. Even better. And then you can apply that at the end, and it'll apply that shape, and then we can close that, and that's where we need to be. Now one thing we did, I'm just moving that out of the way for a minute, one thing we did learn last week was the gradient tool before we moved on to the gradient mesh tool. Now what I want to try and do is, if you want to if we come back over it here, you can see that the gradient or the shadow under here is quite intense under the shape, and then it gets softer and softer as it goes out. So I'm going to just, again, off piste, try and do this to this shape here. I'm going to make that a little bit dark. Well, make that a little bit darker. I'm going to click my gradient tool there. So when you select your tool, by clicking the selection arrow here, and you click on the tool, or click on the shape, if you click this window will open out for you, and if you click on that, there's your gradient there. Oh, just excuse me 1 minute, we've got a stroke on here, so we'll take that stroke off. Take the stroke off, and we'll have that there. Okay, that's great. No, it's not. Click on this fill, turn that to gradient. There we go. So just gonna, again, it was a bit of experimental with me because, as I've mentioned before, Inkscape isn't the one that I use all the time for creating vectors. So you can, your experience kind of can push you in certain directions, and I found here, what I found here was we still had a stroke, so I wanted to get rid of the stroke, so I clicked on my stroke and got rid of the stroke by clicking that X. Then I went to my fill, clicked on my fill, making sure this was still selected, and then I moved over to here and clicked radial gradient, and that gave us that kind of effect that we want. I'm going to get rid of that, and then that avoids us actually trying to use the blur option that we used before, so we don't really need to use that now. One thing that we probably, this is me just going OTT now, but one thing we'll probably want to do now is add a bit more color to the bottom of this pear. Now if we click on that color, click on this shape here, click on that, just gonna, no, zoom in a little bit, click on one of these nodes. I'm going to change that node to a really dark color. See if I'm zooming a little bit, I'll click on that. Right, we know we want to turn that node there, and I want to make it a really dark color, so I'm going to go over here and select that. Now if I zoom out, zoom over here, yes, it's created that darker color down there. Okay, I can bring that up, and I would do the same with that one as well. Click on the node, click on the node there, zoom out, go over here, find a really dark shade to pinch, maybe something like that, zoom back, come back over. And as you can see, it's adding a bit more shadow all the way along there, and I would just continue to do that really, and then I would seek that down a little bit more, and that's not a bad job for an hour's work, I guess. That's how you use a gradient mesh tool in Inkscape, and as you can see, it does look quite 3D. We'll come back at 10 past, and what I'll do is I'll talk you through how I would put this stem on there, and then what we'll do, I think that looks quite good. What we'll do after that is let's have a quick look at our presentation. Apply the mesh tool in Inkscape, we've done that. Those two are the same thing. Artboards, we're going to switch to back to Illustrator after that, and I'm going to explain artboards to you and what artboards are, because artboards are going to be quite important for us when it comes to creating our birthday card, when we're creating our banner for our birthday party, and the invitation that we're going to put the artwork on for our 70th birthday. And that's why we're doing these little tutorials here, guys, to apply our knowledge to create the artwork for the birthday party that we're gonna put together. And the artboards need to be set to certain sizes once we've created our artwork. What I'm also going to do in the next hour is have downloaded a nice image of a birthday cake. Here it is here, and I didn't have time to draw one, and that one's far better than the one I would draw anyway. So I'm going to pretend I've drew that, and if you guys have done, if you guys have done this, our gut sketches and illustrations. This we would treat that as a sketch or an illustration. We'll bring it in Illustrator or Inkscape, and we're going to start using our gradient mesh knowledge to apply color to this cake here. Okay, I'm going to show you two different ways of coloring this image in. We're going to use one using the gradient mesh tool, which looks quite realistic, as you can see what we've achieved today in Inkscape for that pear. But then I'm going to show you a bit more of a graphical way of coloring that in as well, where it's less realistic, but it's a bit more kind of cartoony, if you like. Okay, so we're going to do two little demonstrations after our little break for that. Please give us a shout on our chat on our live chat in YouTube. If you've got anything that you would like us to look at while I'm doing this live, give me a shout. But yeah, we're going to have a little break now. It's now 2 o'clock. Please catch us back here at 2:10, and we'll catch up with applying our knowledge from using the gradient mesh tool to our artwork for our birthday party. Okay guys, we'll see you back here in 10 minutes. Thanks very much. Hello guys, welcome back to our second half of Crafty Illustrations, hosted by me, Leon, the tutor here at Media Savvy. Right guys, just before we start off again, I know a few of you who are tuning in have already enrolled in our course, and that's great. But those of you who are watching this back and haven't enrolled, please enroll in our on this course, please. It's really important for us to get to log our learners, okay? And then at the end of the session, we've got our survey as well. All the links are on here. You can email me at any point if you have any issues with that. All right, guys. Okay, so before the break, we were looking at the gradient mesh tool. Okay, we explored the gradient mesh tool in Illustrator last week, and we created this representation of this pear. And what we've tried to do in this first half of our session is do exactly the same in Inkscape, which is another vector-based program that allows you to create vector-based images. But this program is absolutely free and it's open sourced, so you can download that. And you've got people who build within the community of Inkscape who add and develop the program. Okay, and that's why it's free. So Inkscape's great, and we've been exploring how to use this gradient mesh tool to create this really nice kind of 3D kind of image of this pear. Okay, well, not a 3D image. This is a 2D image, but 3D look, 3D representation of this pear. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go into Illustrator. I'm going to create a new document. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to bring in this shape, well, not this this cake in the Illustrator. So we're going to switch to Illustrator now. We've learned what we needed to learn across both platforms. We've learned how to use the gradient mesh tool in Illustrator, and we've learned how to use the gradient mesh tool in Inkscape. What we're going to do now is we're going to color in this cake, but I'm going to show you how to do it in two different ways. I watched a really cool tutorial on how to apply color and give a cartoon effect to images, and that link is available on our presentation. I'll just quickly show you where that is, so you're familiar with it. I believe that tutorial is it's some it's not on there, but I will put it on. I'll make a little note now on my little notebook. Creating cartoon. In fact, I'll quickly show you where it is. I really urge you guys to look at this, how to create how to use gradient mesh tool, just to reinforce your learning. That link is actually on our tutorial, on our presentation. It was really,
with MailChimp's Creative Smarts.
Helpful. Okay, so that was the one. Right, I'm going to pause that for a minute. I'm going to copy that link for you. Now I'm just going to whack that in, create a new little slide, create useful tutorials. I'm just doing this on the fly, guys, just so it's in there for you. Put that in there, and that's cartoon. So that's there. Okay, I'll create this a link to this document that I'm working on for you guys at the end of the session today. So we're going to go into Illustrator, I'm going to create a new document by going File, New, and then you've got this window here. Okay, now this is we're going to look at this in a bit more detail next week, which is going to be our last week. But what I want us to look at doing now is just trying to think how to do this. And we'll keep that as A4 for now. Okay, keep the size at A4. If you click the profile and click on print, you'll have a lot of different options there for different sizes of document. But remember, guys, the beauty of working in vector, working as a vector-based image, is that it can be upscaled near enough infinite without losing any quality. So if you choose something the size of A4 but actually need it to get printed for the side of a double-decker bus, it wouldn't be too much of an issue. Okay, and click on A4 for now. We're creating a whole new document. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open up one of our images. Let's come out here a minute. Go into here, go into the teaching folder, Crafty Creatives, and was it in this one? Right. I'm opening a document now, and remember we created a little bit of artwork at the very beginning of our course, and these were the basic sketches that I created for this birthday celebration. Okay, so we've got 70th birthday there. We've got the card because we created a profile for the person that we are designing the artwork for, and she was a 70-year-old person who liked motor racing and flowers and things like that. She also liked skydiving and found out as well. And then we applied that gradient mesh tool to the car that we sketched out a few weeks ago. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to give a bit more attention to this cake, and we're going to apply the gradient mesh tool to that cake. But first I'm going to show you a few little tips I picked up from that tutorial that I've pasted into that presentation for you. So we're going to go to this this document here. As you can see, each one of these little windows here are the different documents that I have open. So the Pear tutorial from Illustrator, that's one. That's a new document I've opened, and then that's the original document that we created in the first session. I'm going to go File, I'm going to save that in session 4. I'm going to call this Cake. Save that. Click yes because I don't know what all that means. Can't be bothered to read it. And then we're going to bring in that that picture of the cake. So there's a picture there. I'm going to go File, Place, and choose the cake. Okay, click Place. And there it is there. Fantastic. Now, on my list of things to show you today is the gradient mesh tool, which we can check that off because we've done that now. It is showing you how to apply gradient mesh tools to the cake so we can build up our artwork for next week, and then to create a cartoon version of this. One other thing I want to show you, which we haven't covered and we're going to cover again hopefully next week, is how to use the internal trace system in Illustrator to turn this into actual lines. At the minute, this is just a flat image, and as you can see by the cross along there, it is just a flat image of this cake. Okay, so it's basically a photograph or a scan of this image. The really cool thing that oh, and also I want to show you is Artboards as well. So there's a few little things. So Artboards, Artboards, the trace. I'll show you the trace thing first. So this cool trace system here can be found in once you select the image using the black arrow tool in Illustrator, you click on it, and the image trace button comes up here. Okay, if you click on that or click the little preset arrow down here, it'll allow you to choose how you want to trace that image. So I'm going to choose black and white, or silhouette. Let's try sketch start, see what that does. As you can see, it goes through its magic, and then it's created actual artwork from there. And what you need to do is press expand. Okay, and as you can see now, it's traced that image and give us actual nodes and points around that image instead of that flat image. So we can then color that in. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this text. This is the person who created the artwork. So there's so that's great. We're just going to get rid of that now. I'm using my white arrow to select elements of this image, and then what we're going to do is we're going to look at adding color to this image. So we've actually, I'm going to go through that one time again. Brought in the image, place that image in. There it is there. You can see the quality difference straight away. This is the image that we've brought in on the right hand side. This is the image that we've traced around. And then we clicked image trace. We chose line art, I think it was. But what we want to do, clicked image trace, trace the image, and there it is there. Okay, so that's what we've done. Gonna get rid of that. Okay, this leads me to one other cool tool, which is, again, is an advanced tool which I only picked up on the other week, and I hope I can show you it. Bear with me 1 minute. Live paint bucket. Okay, so what we want to do is if you click over here, it's about 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 down, and click on the live paint bucket tool. Now this is going to be, I'll tell you what, instead of wasting any of our time, let's have a quick look on YouTube to have a quick overview. See if I can find a quick YouTube video of the live paint bucket. I'll put this. I'll put this in our link as well, in our presentation.
Yo, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Live paint bucket tool here with the paint bucket tool. The first step is selecting everything. Then you press Escape because that's the shortcut, and you can see there's a red highlight. When you press once, you can see you're in the live paint bucket tool mode, and you can color in all those different things. Keep in mind, it's not the bucket that is like the point, it's like the tip of the arrow. So let's say, for example, we want to give that let's say a red one, and we're gonna give that a green one, and we're gonna give.
Okay, so that's basically the essence of that tool. There's the live paint bucket tool there, so we're going to click on it, and I'm going to close these. I'm going to go window, and if you do the same, if you don't already have your swatches available, these are the color swatches. I'm going to change this to like a chocolatey colored cake, so I'm going to go with this color here, and I'm going to hopefully, the live paint bucket only colors live paint groups. Select, right, okay, as he showed us in that tutorial, we need to select the entire image first. So we've done that. Click on that. There, it's gone red like he said. Click this. There we go. It allows us to pick the colours that we want. Okay, I'm going to change, well, that to that, to that, and as you can see, it's very, very quick to start adding colour to your image. Let's give this a nice pink colour instead, and we'll give that a nice green colour. Look how easy that is to colour in. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll pick some darker colour for those little bits. Maybe it's a chocolate chip type thing, I don't know. Look how easy that is. Now I've messed up a bit here. Zoom in, pressing Alt and zooming in with your mouse. And this is so, it's the first time I've actually used this tool, and it's so useful, isn't it? It's so quick to colour in. Otherwise, I'm not too sure how I would go about doing that. Maybe selecting all the images, all the shapes individually and doing it, but this works so much better. And then, can you sample the colour? There we go. Go back to that there. So this is going to be the cartoon kind of element to the cartoon kind of effect one. And then let's say let's make this a nice, and I'll recolor these actually. Oh, wrong one. That one. There we go. And I'll just quickly change that to that. Change the plate. I'll keep the plate white maybe. Change the colours to of the candles. I'll give them. I'll leave the candles for now. Okay. So there we go. We've coloured that in quite nicely. I'm gonna save that. Remember, guys, what I did in Inkscape. I always make a copy, don't I? If I feel I'm going to mess up, and I don't want to do that. So not too much anyway. So now, what I want to try and do is I want to try and select these elements here. I want to show you how to create a really quick kind of shadow effect. Okay, so I'm using my white arrow tool there, and I'm zooming in to the image. I'm holding down, I'll do it again. So white arrow tool, the direct selection tool, that one is. Clicking on that, holding down shift on my keyboard, and clicking the bits that I want to select. So these are all the bits that are of the same color, all the icing at the top here. Okay, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to this one, selection tool, that selects the entire thing, and then I'm going to press Control and D to maybe create a copy. I made a mistake. Control C, Control V, make a copy. Let's group that as well. So Control G to group that. And I'm going to make that a darker purple from the swatches. So I've selected the group, press that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop that down okay, and I'm going to select this bit, I'm going to select that bit, I'm going to hold, and then I'm going to try and use a thing called it is called Pathfinder, and a Pathfinder can be found in Windows. If you click on Window and then click on the Pathfinder control box, this allows you to what I'm aiming to get at is keep this little section of the image, okay? So I'm going to drop that down a bit there, select that, and hopefully remove no, I'm going to do that. I'll always have to do a bit of a trial and error with this tool here, because it's not that one, it's not that one, definitely not. Ungroup that, let's try that. Select that, select that. Tell you what I'm going to do, I'm going to select that, I'm going to select that, I'm going to move these away over here. So what I've done is I've moved those images out of the way. I'm going to just experiment with these. That divide seems to, I think, works quite nicely. And I can delete that. I can delete this. Get rid of this. Oh. And then you can move this back up to your cake. Move that out of the way now. Move these out of the way. And you can rest these on your cake there. Okay, and then what we can do is we can edit some of these bits that we don't want. So get rid of that. And maybe trim that slightly. Maybe what we need to do is just drag these over here. There you go, to create that kind of 3D effect with the cake there. And then what we can do really, what I did notice somebody was doing online recently was just drawing the shape here, selecting that there. So we've got, again, just experimenting here guys, so I'm moving that out of the way. I'm going to make a copy. Press Alt, hold down your black arrow, press your black arrow, hold down Alt, drag a copy out of the way. And then just saw somebody do this the other week and looked quite cool, so I'm going to try and do it myself. Redo that. Maybe it was a pencil too, not too sure. Selected both of them and then there we go, start again. Okay, so draw around there, select both of them, I'm going to remove that one because it's going to confuse matters. Select that, move that out a bit. Oh. Select that, and then it was one of these. Wasn't that one? Wasn't that one? Wasn't that one? That was it. Okay, so all I was doing was testing each one, and when it wasn't the right one, I was pressing Control and Z to go backwards. So I've drew around using my pencil tool, and this just allows you to draw freehand with your mouse or your pen, if you've got a pen on a tablet. Draw around the image. That's creating a shape, and what we're going to want is to keep that shape there, but get rid of everything else. So you select your selection tool, click that shape, and it was that one, but no, it wasn't. It was that one. And then we want to color that to purple, and then you can bring that up there, and you can position that where you want it there to create that kind of 3D look there. Okay, the little bit of a shadow. Now there is a tutorial on this, and the tutorial is the one I've just placed in our this one here, and it does that far better than I'm explaining at the minute. So please look out for that tutorial. Have a look on that. I don't think it's that long, and they go into a little bit more detail than I'm going to go into now on how to create that kind of 3D. Was not a 3D, but more of a cartoony kind of look. So that's the cake with the cartoony look. Okay, what we're going to do now is I'm going to create a copy of the lines of the cake. I'll bring in the cake again. I'm going to trace it again. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Okay, expand. So what expand does is it breaks it out of the bounding box there, and finds all the shapes that fit that image. I'm going to get rid of those. So this here is the one that we've created using. I'm going to put a few of the tools that we used here. So we used the live trace, and then I'll put a little arrow there, and we used line drawing. We also did live paint in that to select the image, the elements to that we wanted to color. Okay, so for this one below, which I'm going to position this one below, we're going to look at that gradient mesh tool again. I keep on banging on about that because I think it's a really cool tool. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and apply a gradient mesh tool to this shape here, to the icing. Let's see if we can do that. So there's a gradient mesh tool there. Now that's immediately telling us there's too many shapes in that. Let's see if we can let's try and apply it to the cake then. So all I'm using is that pen tool, which is a bit similar to the very similar to that Bezier tool that we were using in Inkscape. All I'm doing is creating a shape here to copy that shape of that part of the cake. I'm going to fill it with that colour, and I'm going to try and use this gradient mesh tool on this cake here. Okay, I'm going to move that over to one side, and then we're going to have a look at applying colour to this cake. So I'm going to move this out of the way a little bit. We used the lasso selection tool to select the point, and then that's how we changed the colour, wasn't it? Yeah. So what we're going to do now is we're going to select the points that we want to go darker. So let's say we want these points to be darker. Select the points using the direct selection tool. There we go. Let's make that a bit darker still. Now, how can we get this effect here? Because it was saying that there was too many points. The paths has too many points to create a gradient mesh. Okay, let's try and use this circular tool. I'm going to put that as blue for now. I'm going to just see if I can mimic making this icing by layering these on top of each other. Might make this a little bit smaller just to give it a look, make it look a little bit different. And I'm going to use my Pathfinder tool and click the Unite to create one shape. Now the message that we were getting back here was that was too many points here to create the mesh. So I'm going to see if it will work now on this, which it will. So as you can see, there's far too many points here for it to have a for it to work. And if we look at the points in this image here, in this object, you can see how many nodes there are there. Okay, so that's one obstacle that we need to overcome. So what I've just done here is just try to make the icing look, make a representation of the icing here. I will want to click the mesh tool, and I'm just trying to see if it works, which it does work. Okay, so it does work with what I've done there. So what I'll do is I'll select all these points at the top. I'm going to make that a nice blue. I'm going to select all the ones at the bottom and make that a darker, maybe a darker blue, and the ones in the middle I'll select and see if we can change the colour. I'll make that lighter, and then we can tweak around these where these sit. Okay, you might move that over here. Might want to do this. Made a few mistakes there, so I'm just gonna go back. I'm going to go back, you're just pressing Ctrl and Z. Moving those down, these little anchor points here. So, we know that works, but it won't apply to that. So, let's try and we've got that piece in there. What we need to try and do is we need to try and make this a little bit more simpler. So if we hover around here, the pencil tool, hold down, click the smooth tool, there's an option with the smooth tool here that allows us to simplify some of these shapes and smooth it out a bit. I wonder if that's going to work. This is just experimenting now, guys, because I don't really know how to improve that. Will that do anything with it? There's still too many points. Okay, no problem. What we can also try and have a look at is also simplify. Improve that. See if I can. There's a simplify tool somewhere in Illustrator. There we go. So if you click the element that we want, which is this bit of the icon, if we go down to path, we go down to simplify, object, path, simplify, we can, and click the preview tool here. What we can do is we can simplify that shape. So if we zoom in a bit, take the curve precision down, to the original shape there, drop the position down a little bit, click OK. I'm going to move this out of the way. Now let's see if this works with that. Yes, it does. So it's allowing us to create the gradient on that. So basically this here was a little bit too complicated for the computer to work out, so we had to simplify how many points there was in here. So what I've done now, I'm going to go back to the beginning before we finish for the day. What I did was I selected, made sure that the whole object was ungrouped, so I could select the individual elements. I clicked the direct selection tool up, second tool up there in your toolbar, clicked on the that little piece of the icing, click the selection tool, and then I pressed hold down Alt on my computer keyboard. Excuse me. I don't need to keep the direct selection tool selected. Hold down Alt and just copy. Take a copy one way or another. Or this is still in part of the group. Let's ungroup that. So another way of doing it, I'm not too sure why that wasn't working. Press Control and C. Click out of the shape, press paste, and then there's your shape there. Okay. Then what we want to do is, it's gone in black for now, that's not a problem. Then you want to go to Object, Path, Simplify that shape, click OK. It's not going to look as curvy as that, but with the added information that we're going to, added gradients that we're going to put in, it should make it look better anyway. I'm going to just select my direct selection tool and alter some of these a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to have a look at applying that gradient mesh tool. So click on your gradient mesh tool, click on there, just clicking to try and create a mesh out of it. And then what we're going to do is use our lasso tool to select the bottom points, and then we're going to go and click this dark green here, and then we're going to select that lasso tool again. We missed a few points out here. Click that dark green again. Probably missed that one out there. Dark green, and then we're going to go and select the middle points. All I'm doing here is just drawing around the shape and selecting the points, the nodes, these points here that I want. There we go. And then select some other nodes from the top here, and then we'll go white with that. Okay, we've got a node here that we need to change because it's still black. We'll give that color. There we go. All right, so we're getting there with that now. Then we can click our selection tool here and then position that where we want it to go. That looks quite good actually. So then what we want to do, what we can do is then we can bring the drawing in front of that image. So if you click on the drawing, right click on it and click bring to front, that will allow the lines to go above the image, above the gradient that we've just filled in there. Okay, then what we want to do is just roughly put it in position and zoom in, click our little nodes here and just drag those just so they sit behind the lines. Okay, make sure you're selecting the right thing. Now it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time to mess about with this, and that's fine, but as you can see it creates a pretty cool effect there. So it's probably worth spending a bit of time if you like this effect to kind of get used to it, and don't be scared to make your mistakes. Just so long as you make your copies, remember, always make some copies there so you've got something to go back to if you need to. So I'm just adjusting that now, and there you have it. There's the shaded version of that, okay, which adds a bit more depth. And then what we can do is we can bring that cake a bit over, put that on top there, and remember we brought the image, the actual drawing, above the gradient tool, so that's why that's sitting above there now. And then I want to explore one thing again. It might not work, but there's one thing that I did find that was quite cool last time when I was experimenting with Illustrator, was to just use the eraser tool. But what we need to do is we need to go to our layers, and that's Windows, Layers, and then if you click this little drop down button here, what we want to do is we want to click on, and there's the cake right at the very top, the line drawn of the cake. If we press a little I, that will turn it off, turn it back on. We want to lock that, so if you click next to it and click the space next to it, that will lock that. So what that means is you can't move it, you can't edit it, you can't do anything with it until you unlock it. Now what I want to try and do is try and remove some of this here, which it won't allow us to do. It was just an experiment, and that doesn't allow us to do that with the eraser tool, so that's fine. What we'll have to do then is move these nodes position them where we need them to be. Okay. There we go. And just keep on playing around with it until it fits. Move your nodes down. And now what you're learning here, guys, it might it's not the basics. This is quite advanced stuff. This is stuff that I've never really used before until trying to show you. So in learning these advanced tools, you're definitely getting the grips of the most basic ones as well, but you're actually applying something to that applying some applying this knowledge to create something that looks quite effective. So there's that, and then what we could do then is then go ahead and draw the icing in. Now I want to just quickly try something again. It's just I don't know whether this will work, but we'll have a go. What we can do, you know, before when I was trying to draw the some shadows underneath the icing, what we can do here is just we're going to use this tool here, which is the brush tool. Click the brush tool. What we're going to do is we're going to change this icing in color here first of all. So I'm going to click on that, undo that, click off that, change the icing in color to a nice pink. I'm going to make that brush a little bit bigger, and that's the size of the brush there. So if we can make that maybe 15, that just trace over it. I'm wondering now whether we can make that into a actually position that below that. There we go. We can then use the eraser tool to erase the bits that we don't need on that. No. Just bear with me 1 minute. So this is actually a line at the minute. So what we're going to do, I'm going to draw it again. Get your brush tool in there. Just draw over it like that. And then if you click on it, click object, go to your path, outline the stroke to turn it into an actual object. Then we should be able to trim it. So if I'm going to move this now underneath the drawing, we should be able to erase the bits that we don't want quite easily. This is another way of using your rendering, if you like to call it that, or colouring in. This is one way of colouring in your image. Quite an effective way of doing it, especially if you've got an overlay drawing like we have here. And I appreciate the time. It's now coming up towards the end of this session, but I just want to quickly show you this before we finish for the day. Because although we've already got this shape anyway, you might find this technique useful if you're colouring in some of your own stuff. So I just wanted to quickly show you. So we've got the icing in there. Before I was trying to show you, and I wasn't doing a very good job of making this a darker colour. So then what you can do is use your paintbrush tool here. Oh, excuse me. Use your paintbrush tool. Make sure you're underneath your drawing. Choose a darker colour. Maybe make your brush a little bit smaller by clicking this little drop down button here. And then you can just go on the underside of that image to create that kind of shadow of the icing. And then if you look at your layers here on your right hand side in the layers palette, that's that path there, that with the little blue dot, that's what we just drew. If you drag that underneath your drawing, can you see that brings that colour right underneath the drawing of the cake, and then we can go back to the eraser tool, click it, and then we can just remove bits of that there. Like that, and then that gives that a bit more of a kind of 3D effect. Okay, I'm going to save that now, and I think we're getting there with our artwork. We've got two different options there. We've got that more of a less shaded version and a shaded version. One thing I want to show you, I'm going to just touch on before we finish for today's session. Appreciate we're just going to go over slightly. One thing I want to show you is what we can look at doing for next week. Now, as promised before, we were going to create from our artwork that we're creating here now, and from the artwork from here, we're going to create something for a 70th birthday. We've got some ideas for some cakes and candles here with 70 on, which we can bring in and put those in the actual birthday cake there. But we need to create a birthday card, we need to create an invite, and we need to create a banner. Now, in this document, when we set this document up, it's an A4 document. What we can do here in Illustrator, you can't do this in Inkscape unfortunately, but in Illustrator you can create different documents within this one file. So we've got an A4 piece of paper here, if you like. If you click on this button here, now I'm going to go over this again next week. I'm just making a note. Definitely going to be going over this next week. This is just to show you, but within this one file we can have multiple documents at different sizes, and that's where Illustrator is quite useful. We've got a little artboard tool here. If we click on it, we can create a new artboard, and we can create as many artboards as we like. So I'm going to have one artboard there for the card, I'm going to have one artboard there for the invite, and I'll do one down here for the banner, and I've just roughly drew them in there. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that because that's annoying me. And then if you click Windows and you click Artboard here, this is the artboard. These are the 4 different artboards we have in this file. We've got this one what the cakes are sitting on, then we have this one here which is an artboard 2, this one's artboard 3, and this is artboard 4. Now if we go to click on artboard 2, okay, and we go to the attributes of that artboard by clicking Windows, attributes, click on the attributes again. Sorry, if you double click on that, you should be able to change the shape of that artboard. You can by clicking that. That's it. So you click the artboard tool again, and what we want to change the name of that artboard to by double clicking on it and calling that birthday. I'm going to cover this next week. I'm just going to showing you what's possible at the minute in Illustrator. And then artboard 3 is the invite, birthday, and artboard 4 is going to be the banner. Double click on it, just birthday. Okay, so we've renamed those. We're going to go back to birthday card, double click on it, make sure we've got our artboard tool selected, and this is where we can change the dimensions. Okay, now I'm just going to experiment here. It needs to be 5 inches by 7 inches, so we click 5, but click inches, that automatically converts it to the document setup, which is millimeters. So 5 inches is 127 millimeters. and we'll do the same to that one. That needs to be 7 inches. Just delete all that and type in 7 inches, convert that. So that is already now set up for us to put our artwork on once we've created it. The birthday invite will do the same. That needs to be 4 by 6. So we'll click our artboard tool, click on artboard 3 and change that to 4 inches and change that to 6 inches, was it? Yeah, 6. And then the banner we'll worry about next week. As you can see, we've got one document that contains the artwork for all of them, so it makes it a lot easier when it comes to composing your artwork initially, and having one central location where all the artwork is kept for one project that you're working on. Okay, so as a recap, guys, I've had an action-packed day today. Let's have a quick look back at what we've done, shall we? Right, so we revisited our gradient mesh tools in Illustrator and in Inkscape, and we spent the first half of the session in Inkscape creating this really nice curvy little peach with and we went through a process here, as you can see, from setting the gradient mesh tool to applying colors in different locations, and then eventually we added more contour lines to give it a bit more of a curvy shape. Then what I did promise that I would do the stalk, but we didn't have time to do that today, and we might have a look at that next week. We also drew that shape using the Bezier tool, which is very similar to the graphic pen or the pen tool in Illustrator. So we drew that, and you should be familiar with that now if you've done that a few times in this course. So we've done that in the first half of the session. The second half of this session, we brought in an image, which was this cake, and it was the image was the line drawing, and then we used a number of different techniques to color this image. And the first one I showed you was the live paint tool. That was really cool for really quickly applying text to a black and white image or to an image, providing it's a vector, providing it's got those paths and lines. And as you can see, we build up those colors, and then if we weren't happy with the colors, we would quickly change them again. And then we looked at creating a different effect by applying what we've learned from using the gradient mesh tool, and we applied that to colouring this cake here. So there we've got two different effects of how two different kind of styles on how we colourize this cake. And as you can see, we're building up this artwork, which we're going to be using to finalise next week to create a card, an invite and a banner for our 70th birthday party. Okay, so that's where we are, guys. We've done quite a lot today. It's quite a lot to take in, and it's good that we're recording this live now, so you can go back to YouTube and have a look at this later. Pause it at your own leisure. Go back, rewind, fast forward, and pick up the little pointers that we've covered in today's session. What I'll do after we finish for today, I'll go back and update our presentation. I'll make sure all the links are there for those useful tutorials that I've been referencing this week to try and get my head around some of these tools, and they'll be there as well for you. Okay. Yeah, so next week we'll come back to Illustrator, we'll finalise our artwork, and then we'll place it in our different artboards that we've set up. We'll talk a little bit more about artboards next week, and that'll be ready to then export and export in a format where we can print them. Okay, and then we'll look at how we would achieve a similar thing in Inkscape. Okay, but until next week, we are gonna stop for today because my throat is really dry, and we've just gone over slightly. So we're gonna stop for today. We're gonna leave it there. I'm going to update this presentation and then put the link on our YouTube description for you to download. Please don't forget to enroll on the course. If you haven't already done that, please enroll. You can contact me at any point if you have any issues. There's my email address there. And until next time, guys, we'll leave it there and have a nice weekend, and I will see you next week for the final session. Okay, thanks very much.